Patreon, going strong. If you want to go over there and join in on the fun, we got 3 tiers on Canadian dollars. First tier is $3 a month, where you get these episodes ad free. You also get AMAs once a month, or learn about me episodes once a month. And then on the second tier, which is $5 a month, you get everything from the first tier, as well as coverage of a reality show of yesteryear. That's right now Jersey Shore, currently in season 3. You can also go to the main feed, where there will be the first episode of every season released there, so you can try that before you head over to the Patreon. And then on the third tier, you get everything from the first 2 tiers, as well as coverage from a true crime documentary. We got the backlog of Ashley Madison documentary, Man with 1,000 Kids, Into the Fire, Lacey Peterson, and again, all those episodes for the first episode of each is in the main feed, so you can try that before you head over. So if you are interested, you can head over to patreon.com/realityt times 2, and you can sign up for whichever tier you feel for. Again, you can try before you buy, which basically means you can try any tier for a week before committing to it. Even if you are on other tier, if you are on tier 1 or the first tier and you want to go over to the second tier, you could still try that second tier for a week before committing to the upgrade. So again, that is at patreon.com/realityt times 2. And of course, the link is in the show notes, website, social media accounts. It's all available there. This episode is ad-free on the Patreon. So if you want to partake in that, you can head on over to patreon.com/realityt times 2. Welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we are going to be finally discussing, sorry for the delay on this one and all the other ones. That should have been out last week, but that's okay. But we're going to be doing Age of Attraction, the reunion. The reunion was done by Nick Viall, Natalie, obviously, on YouTube. You can find the video on YouTube, or I'm sure you can find the audio as well on their podcast feed. But without further ado, let's just jump right into this, because this is a lot. Okay, so Pfeiffer, first off, right off the bat, Pfeiffer's not here. We will get an explanation as to why that is a little later. Apparently, Andrew has been in Florida. Now, if you remember, it was a must that anyone he ended up with had to be in Baltimore, because that's where his kids is. That's where his business is. More on that later. I got this part incorrect, but I wrote down that it looked like all the couples were still together except for Derek and Pfeiffer. I was wrong with that. So Derek and Pfeiffer not together. Obviously, we know Leah and Chris are not together. They weren't together from before. And Teresa and John are also not together. So we'll get into that. It's interesting too, because I did write this part down, that Teresa and John were in a good place, but she had questions. So maybe it was that they were in a good place and then shit hit the fan. Whatever that is, we'll get into it. So we move on to Andrew and Libby. So Libby has actually gone to 3 Taylor Swift concerts. She had to correct the narrative because she says she only went to 1 Taylor Swift concert. Her mother had to tell her, ma'am, you've been to 3. I don't care, but I'm here to report the news, so here I am reporting the news. They are still together, which I'm kind of shocked by, but they are still together. They are long distance. And here's where we get part of the question answered here. He sold his business about a year ago. So right around the time that he was filming. or maybe after he finished filming. Maybe business was too much, maybe he lost money not being there. Whatever the reason, business is bye-bye. He says, it's 39 now because it's been a year, and he's starting over. There are worse times to start over, you know what I mean? You're only 39, it's fine, you're gonna be fine. He almost didn't come out actually to the reunion, but she was there to pick him up, like, emotionally. She doesn't feel the age gap between them, which is I would actually question whether or not he feels the age gap between them more than she feels the age gap between them, because I think for me, Libby thinks she's mature. I mean, I think she's fine, but she still has a lot of growing up to do nonetheless. Didn't we all at 22, 23? Um, but it would be interesting to kind of know whether or not he feels the same way. But anyways, one of the questions that is asked is whether or not anyone has had any issues with the age gap. Um, they kind of say, being long distance is a challenge, but they talk and they see each other all the time, so it's fine. No one in their personal lives have issues with the age gap. But yeah, apparently, which again is interesting because he very much voiced that, her moving to Baltimore is a non-negotiable. Now, all of a sudden, she doesn't want to move to Baltimore. I wonder if that's partly because the business is now gone, but he still has his children. So, but anyways, they say that they're thinking about Florida, which is interesting because that's where he currently is. And he would split his time between Florida and Baltimore. Interestingly, Andrew didn't want to be with someone who was divorced and had kids. Like, and I don't know how I feel about this. I generally understand where he's coming from, I guess, with this. You have your own quote unquote baggage and your own history, your own past. So you don't necessarily want to take on somebody else's quote unquote baggage and past. But I'd still think it's kind of gross because it's not like you're going for someone you're 38. You're not going for someone who's in their 30s. You literally landed on a person who is what, 8 years older than your oldest child. It's a little weird. It's very weird. So I also I do take issue with men, especially men with children, kind of being like, "Oh, I don't wanna deal with a woman with children." Okay, well, first of all, number 1, she probably doesn't want to deal with you anyways. Number 2, who are you? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I understand on one side, but on this side that I'm really truly on, I don't understand it, and I actually hate it. It's kinda gross, especially when knowing, in this case, she's 22, not 23. So, um, also, he says he's worried about the timeline of having kids because there is a cutoff for him. So it's like, okay, what is that cutoff? Because I'm interested to know as a viewer, what is that cutoff? Because you're about to be 39. Is your cutoff 40? Is your cutoff 45? Is your cutoff 50? Like, what is your cutoff? And that part we don't have the answer to. So I'm just curious what that is. Because she's 22, 23. I guarantee you, she's not going to want to have kids right now. She's not ready for that. I don't predict her being ready to have kids until maybe in the next 5 years minimum. I find that in today's age, people tend to have kids later. So I'm just very curious about that. They're not gonna get to that point anyways. They're not gonna work that long. Anyway, um, also she has not met his daughters. I'm sorry, what now? It's been a year. They have been seeing each other. They have been talking to each other. They've been building that relationship. You're now talking about potentially moving to Florida, splitting your time between Florida and Baltimore, and this woman has not met your kids. I don't understand that. I'm not saying that she need to meet those kids right off the bat. No, no. But it's in a year. And it's weird. She hasn't even spoken to them, it seems. Um, So they're saying, "Oh, it still feels like a honeymoon stage," or he says that. Again, I think he's putting that as, like, a negative in terms of meaning the daughters, but, I mean, I f maybe you're still in that stage, but because you're not living together, so you have, like, this, "Oh, I haven't seen you in X amount of time, and that's exciting," and blah, blah, blah. But then you're only gonna have that if you're living in either the same state or in the same place, and at that point, once you've potentially moved in together, then your kids are gonna meet her. It doesn't seem I'm just very confused. Um, so, yeah, he says they haven't had significant amount of time together. He wants to see more before that happens, which I understand that, but then create the more. Create the more because I wouldn't be discussing moving anywhere for anyone if I haven't met the most important people in in that person's life. Like I just couldn't. Um, so he says that they do know that she exists. And next says, to play devil's advocate, you are saying two things at once, which I agree with. It's like you're saying it's like a honeymoon stage and they know she exists and this and that, but I'm not ready for her to meet because I haven't had significant time. Which is it? It's not it's not your fault. It's not her fault that you are dating long distance. This is just how things have turned out. But create that time. Create the time, create the hard conversations, create those moments so you can get to a point where you feel comfortable to allow her to meet your children. And it doesn't appear that he's doing that. And I do believe that ball is in his court, not the other way around. These are his kids, not hers. So yeah, I'm a little irritated by him a little bit because we're not talking, it's been 2, 4, 6 months. It's been almost a year. And there's been no progress with that at all, especially when he was so eager beaver to have her meet the kids before. So Libby's concern is she doesn't want them to see her on the show and judge her based on that, which I definitely agree with. These children, especially, we're talking now the oldest one's 15 now. They definitely have access to Netflix and they're definitely gonna watch. They just are. They're gonna be like, "My dad's on TV, I wanna watch that," for whether because this is cool, my dad's on TV, or, I wanna get ahead of anything that could potentially happen at school or whatever it is. They're definitely gonna watch this. So I definitely think it would have been good for her to establish some sort of relationship with them prior to them potentially watching the show. So but she does say that she respects him on his decision, so it is what it is. She also has not met the mother of his children, which I do believe that should be the first step. He would leave that up to her if she wants to meet Libby. Um, I mean, I guess yes, that would be definitely up to her, but I definitely would, as the mother, feel comfortable if I'm meeting this person first, especially when she's 23. Like, anyway, that's Andrew and Libby. Let's move on to, I think, the most interesting one for me coming into this. The one I was most interested in hearing more from was Vanell and Jorge. So she did reach out to him after they had left because she missed him. Okay, girl, okay. She wanted to see if they could work it out. Okay, but you were also saying how he's talking at you and he's whatever, whatever. I don't see how you work that out when that's kind of how you're feeling. Anyways, Jorge wants to mince the word, like the abstinence and celibacy. So, of course, because I am who I am, we're going to have to figure out the differences here because he's saying abstinence is more biblical or celibacy, which I do agree with. Abstinence is more biblical, but and then celibacy is more of like you're like abstinence in the sense of you're doing it because God told you to, whereas celibacy, you're like choosing whatever. We kind of already went through the meaning of celibacy, but I will do it again in this episode just because to make sure I get one that's a little bit better here. Um, so celibacy, the state of abstaining from marriage and sexual relations. I don't understand the whole marriage aspects of it, but I do understand refraining from sex. So I'll break it down a little bit more. I think this is what I did last time too. Celibacy is the state of choosing not to engage in sexual intercourse, often on a permanent basis, despite being physically capable of doing so. This practice can stem from personal decisions or commitments, such as religious vows, particularly prevalent in traditions like Roman Catholicism and Buddhism. mm. So that's celibacy. Okay. And then being abstinent or abstinence, I'll read both of these. The fact or practice of restraining oneself from indulging in something well, that's alcohol. That's not too bad. Abstinence. What is the true meaning of abstinence? Avoiding. Okay. This means avoiding all types of intimate genital contact. Let me repeat. This means avoiding all types of the intimate genital contact. Okay? If we remember, she kept using celibate, not abstinent. I'm going to explain why I'm pointing this out, but let me continue. Someone practicing complete abstinence does not have any type of intimate sexual contact, including oral sex. Okay, so before I do the last part of my definitions here, because I do want to do one more. She, if we remember, referred to what she is doing here as celibacy. Okay. And as we could see, celibacy means, refraining from sexual intercourse. Okay. For whatever reason that is. Okay. That is what she referred to it as. Now, I am of the firm belief that you can paint whatever that celibacy will look like, whether it means you're not going to have oral sex, or you are going to have oral sex, or you're going to, you know, do what they were doing, whatever. Like, you can choose what that is. Obviously, there's no if, ands, buts about it. You're not having intercourse. That is what I believe. That is basically what the definition is saying. Now, abstinence basically means having zero sexual contact. Zero. None. No oral, no heavy petting, no fondling, no gyrating, none of that. Zero. Okay. He is basically trying to say what she was doing was abstinence. That's not what she said, and that's not what she did. That is just not what she did, nor what she said. Now, you can choose to be celibate for religious purposes, and that is what she did, and that is what she said. Abstinence appears to be more about religion and refraining because God told you to. That is what I've always believed. And coming from a Catholic school, that is how it was always framed. Abstinence. It was always framed that way. Practice abstinence. Only give yourself to the man's once you're married. Like, that's what that was. So, yeah. One more definition or comparison, I guess, that I want to do here is the difference between both abstinence and celibacy. I can't believe I'm doing this right now, but he left me no choice. Okay. Abstinence is, as we were talking about, abstinence is a temporary or conditional choice to refrain from any particular sexual behavior, often until marriage, while celibacy is a long-term or lifelong commitment to abstain from all sexual activity, frequently motivated by religious or personal vows. Abstinence is action-oriented, so waiting, whereas celibacy is a comprehensive lifestyle choice, which is what it is for her. She never said she never had sex before. If she never had sex before, that's one thing. But she never said she never had sex before. She said, I'm chosen to be celibate, starting from whatever time she decided to do that until I have sex or until I get married. And that it was a vow to God and to herself. That is what she said. I don't understand how he doesn't know the difference and how he doesn't do the research into knowing what the difference is. He just has to be right. But, so yeah. And I guess like what throws me here too is celibacy is generally a long-term, indefinite, or lifelong commitment. I guess like, well, if you're not getting married, then yes. But yeah, the biggest part of this, and again, is the absence is typically viewed as short-term or temporary. Example, waiting until marriage. So basically meaning use a virgin and you're not having sex until you get married. That, I just don't understand how he didn't know that. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I crazy? So I had to do that. And then I wrote this. Oh, there it is. That is why you are the way you are, sir. Y'all, he is a lawyer. Did I miss this? Like, I didn't know this. And I'm like, there we go. That's why you are the way you are. You can't help yourself. You are a critical thinker. You are analytical. Yeah. So we talk about what happened on the streets, and she says, we get a little more context now for what happened. She says that a random guy was yelling at them. Jorge says, to this person, mind your business. That's all just mind your business. And then they started threatening to fight each other. She says he could have done something to diffuse the situation differently. She says, like, he claims what he did was diffusing. I disagree. But I get it. She says, if anything, he escalated it more. This guy could have had a gun or a knife, she's thinking. Shit could have hit the fan, which unfortunately in today's day and age, you do have to think that way. What the fuck is this guy potentially capable of doing? So Natalie asks, was this guy from like afar? Like, did this kind of interaction happen from afar? She says yes. Jorge, on the other hand, says no. He says what happened was they were waiting on a light to change. They were joking around with each other, blah, blah, blah. And he says to her, you're a crazy girl. And the guy inserts himself into the conversation as if it included him and says, like, what'd you say to me? Not a damn fucking thing, my guy. That's what I said to you. What? He said, first of all, I was talking to her. So the light then changed and he said that, she was behind me and he was behind her. So I realize in this moment that I'm thinking what he's thinking is, oh, he's probably thinking as a man, I need to be between these two people. God only knows what he could do, and I'm not going to be able to stop it because she's behind me. Which is interesting because if that is truly how it went down, and Vanilla is worried about, oh, he could have had a knife, he could have whatever. Yeah, he could have had a knife and he could have been like, you know what, fuck this shit, and just run up. And we're unfortunately in a world where, especially being Black people, you have to have those thoughts, right? Um, so anyways, he says she's behind me, he's behind her. I didn't like that. So he said, back off or I will bust your ass. I don't care. I will bust you. This boy comes from forget Jenny from the block, Jorge from the block, okay? This man, I can't remember if he's even from Brooklyn. He might be from Brooklyn. Don't matter though. My guy comes from the streets of New York, okay? He's ready to throw down. He's ready to play. This man, let's not forget, the man is 60, y'all. He lived through the 80s, 70s, and 80s of New York. Those were trying fucking times. This man ain't fucking playing. Okay. And the thing is, like, she's shocked by the whole thing. I'm like, I'm not. Having all of that context, my guy's a lawyer. My guy is from Brooklyn. He lived through the 70s and the 80s of New York City. My guy had to survive freaking Son of Sam and all the other shit that happened. New York, not a fun place. Not back then, especially for Black people. So I totally understand how he's like, let me fuck shit up. Let me do this. So Vanel says he wasn't right behind me, but it doesn't matter if he was right behind you or not. He could have been yards away. He could have been literally 12 centimeters away. It doesn't matter. To him, he's thinking, that's my girl. This guy's rowdy as fuck. If anything were to happen, I want it to happen to me, not to her. So that is what he is thinking. I don't know if this girl has ever had any form of a man wanting and needing and making sure he protects her. I have, definitely. Even if it seems completely unnecessary, it's not unusual. So I get where he's coming from. I'm still getting where he's coming from. Um, so Derek says, I relate with Jorge. I will not take that chance either. And Leah asks Vanel, okay, so let's just talk this shit out. Okay, so how far was he, Vanel? And Vanel says he was a good distance. Okay, Jorge, to you, how far was he? And I think that was a perfect question. It changes the narrative. He, listen, do I think Vanel's correct and he was further away? Yes, I do. But I also can understand from Jorge's perspective that that man could have, he was right there. He was right there. And all it takes is a second. He could have been like, you know what, fuck this shit, and run up on her. And it's done. Jorge may not have been able to do anything about it. So that's where his mind is at. And I love that Leah asked that question in that way because it changes the question and changes the perspective. Loved it. Good for her. Round of applause for Leah. So everything aside, they got love for one another. Then they kind of talk about him not bringing up the kids sooner, which I don't agree with. He says, I didn't hide it from her, but you did. I wanted to tell her on like the third date, but you didn't. Vanell believes now that age could have been the issue with the breakup, even though back then she didn't think so. Because she thinks because he was talking at her that, that could be an age thing. No, honey, it's a lawyer thing. It's a literally a career choice thing. It's nothing to do with in this case, nothing to do with age, nothing to do with the gender, nothing to do, it's literally the choice of career he chose. Trust me. Anyway, he says, I still think it's communication, plus his profession definitely plays a role in how he communicates, as I just said. But that is basically it with Vanel and Jorge. Pfeiffer, we find out, is in Japan celebrating her birthday. You couldn't, you couldn't, you couldn't, like, what? But Derek says some things outside of the bubble may have gotten in the way. This was very confusing for me. This section felt a little bit all over the place, but he basically says like her friends, they're much younger than he is. They probably didn't want to lose their friend, so she never moved to Dallas. And maybe they influenced her to not pick up and leave her life for him. Apparently, she lives in a sorority house, which I'm like, how did that never come up? Like, ever? With a frat house right there, too. How did that? None of that came up? None of that? Nothing? Wow. She's essentially, as he puts it, still living the college life. And he's like, how would it have worked if you wanted to stay over there when visiting? And he just didn't want to burden the roommates. So they dated about a month post filming, and she met his mom, her husband, friends, but she didn't meet his kids, which I think is probably a blessing. in disguise. But anyways, not much there really more to say there for them. Because again, it's hard to we don't have a lot of back and forth because she's not there. But anyways, we then move on to Teresa and John. They are not together. He went to San Francisco to spend time with her and met her friends. They went to Naples as well. And then they went to New York. This is when shit hits the fan. It was there that things started to weigh on her. There was negative things in the press, which I really question. What press? What press? Like, I didn't hear shit about the show until literally the week before it came out. What press? Was this like right then? Because to me, it appears that they've been broken up for a while. So what press? Anyways, they then went to have drinks with his sister and another cast member. They didn't mention, well, I think they did mention who the cast member was. I don't know who the hell they were. And they made her feel very uncomfortable about her age. She felt left out of the conversation. Felt like it was on purpose, which I feel bad for that in a sense. But I do still question, is that really what happened, or is that your perspective? Because we saw her downward spiral when it came to their age gap. Anyways, she said she felt old. She went back to the hotel and she was upset. She texted him and he was supportive at that point, and they would talk when he got back. But she said she was, I don't know if I got this term right, tumbleweeding. The next day they tried to talk, but she didn't feel supported by him. Oh, tumbleweeding, like she's blowing in the wind. Got it. So anyways, she said she didn't feel supported by him, and she said it was like he had no words. She left to take a walk, and when she got back, he was gone. He went to his sister's. For him, he said, it's spot on, but I told her a million times that age is not an issue unless you make it an issue. And the problem is that she constantly made it an issue. He felt like she was uncomfortable walking in the street as if people were looking at them. It gets to a point, no one gives a fuck. You know what I mean? But she denies that. That apparently she told him, I don't think people are looking at us. We look good together. She just felt that things changed for him by the time they got to New York. That's where the comments made. He can't remember what was said, but it like at the drink situation, but it was their relationship. But Nick says it was her perception and she needed you to be there for her, which is true. Leah is very expressive in her thoughts and her feelings right now, which if we remember, obviously, a few episodes back, Leah also was very expressive about things, but that time she was on like, the fuck is going on here? I thought we were supposed to tell people our ages. This time, her thoughts are on John's a bullshitter because she, you know, she says his story does not add up. And Teresa's speaking her truth. And Jorge's like, I think he's taking accountability, which, um, yes and no. Yes, in the sense where he's acknowledging what happened and kind of maybe seeing where his shortfall is, but at the same time, he does have like a defensiveness to him. But Nick is like, yeah, sure, but he's not acknowledging what she is saying because if he's not doing that, I guess in a sense, he's not validating her. Um, he then says, I don't deserve to be with someone who says that she feels disgusting with me, which is really hard. That's really sad. I don't think anyone would be able to take that. She says, and I feel again, this is mincing. She says, I never said that. I said, I felt disgusting with myself. Ma'am, ma'am, that is the same thing. That is the same thing. To him, at least, anyways, it is the same thing. Because if he's probably thinking, the reason you feel disgusted with yourself is because you're dating a younger man. The younger man is me. So that essentially means you're disgusted with me. It's not that difficult to understand and read between the lines. She says, what I needed in that moment is what can I do? But how many times can you keep having these breakdowns and him coming to your rescue? How many times do you think someone can handle that? And I don't know if it was constant, but based on what we saw on the show, it was constant. Once through like the bubbles being broken, she lost her freaking mind. So he said, no, I would. And she says, yeah, you would disappear. I'm not a big texter, he says. But the billionth time he says you deserve to be with someone you are comfortable with, which I do agree with. But Nick says it just doesn't make sense that she's unable to be heard. He admits, I guess I shut down. Well, that's true. He's like, I was over it. Okay. Now you're being honest. And Chris is like, so, like, you couldn't talk about it at some point? But she explains they talked after all of this. She thought they got back together. And then the week later, she saw something on Instagram that concerned her. And she was told, don't worry about it. Ma'am, you ain't together. He missed the memo. That's all I'm going to say. And she tried calling him. He didn't pick up. And they didn't talk for weeks. For him, he thought it was done. So here's why he was doing him. He didn't like how she was talking to him, and it felt best to not talk again. Which, I don't know if that's like the best decision, but hey. Jorge says, I think he is not expressing everything to protect her, and she does not like that. First of all, why does she need protection? Did she ask for the protection? And secondly, is the protection in the room with us? Because to me, it feels like he's doing this to self-preserve and nothing more. And this, although I understand what she's saying here, I don't agree with what she's saying here, but she says, you're gaslighting a little bit, Jorge. No. That's not gaslighting. It's not gaslighting at all. We need to stop being so loosey-goosey with our terms. Anyways, she's like, I don't need protection. And Nick says, on the show you came across as a caring guy. Here, you seem like you're over it, like you don't want to be here. And he does apologize and wishes he handled things better. But she does believe that age played a factor in their demise, which who knows. Also, she apparently texted him saying, do you want to date other people? And he didn't appreciate that, which is like, okay, whatever. And she said, I was kind of giving you the option. And Nick brings up Leia. Sorry, Nick brings up, and Leia points out, I think, and he totally agrees that she should have said something. But I'm very confused about that, but I wrote there. But John says it's a double standard. People with younger kids choose to not introduce their people to them. For her, she chose to keep the age from them, and she, got shit for it, which I disagree with that notion. I do. I really do. But again, Teresa explains her thought process, which she told us before, so I'm not going to reiterate. As for his sister's comments about not, talking about her kids was off-putting to them, he does believe that age was a factor in the demise of the relationship, which who knows. But I'm going to take a quick break here. We still have Chris and Leia, but when we come back, we will jump in with them. Hi, everyone. So I have a new product for you to take part in. This one is called Zelda merch. Zelda, like the video game. So there's a little bit about Zelda merch. So they are the first store that is dedicated to the Legend of Zelda merch, and it stands out. At Zelda Merchandise, they specialize in delivering one-of-a-kind, high-quality Legend of Zelda merchandise that you won't find anywhere else. So whether you're a devoted fan of Zelda, or you collect unique items, or you're just searching for the perfect gift for someone, I could think of someone myself who I could gift this for, their exclusive products are designed to celebrate your love for the series. So they pride themselves in offering a diverse range of premium items. So you can get stylish apparel or stunning accessories to captivating home decor and collectibles. So what sets them apart is their dedication to bringing you rare and distinctive creations inspired by the iconic world of Zelda. So, from exclusive designs featuring your favorite characters and symbols to custom crafted treasures, you won't find this anywhere else. Everything in their store is made to amaze. So, these are different things that you can find. If you're interested, you can get exclusive designs inspired by Zelda's legendary world, premium craftsmanship at the best prices, unique creative products that elevate your fandom. So, they have like weekly bestsellers. They have different rings that you can partake in. They also have Bluetooth controllers or Joy-Con chargers, Nintendo Switch carry cases, Zelda games, of course, and they have Switch card holders, different controllers that are obviously Zelda inspired, or you can go for the more like merchandise type stuff. They have wallets, music boxes, phone cases, mouse pads, keycaps, purses, plushies, watches, mugs. I think I know what I'm going to be doing. I think I know what I'm going to be getting. A special person in my life who loves Zelda. They have mugs, alarm clocks, backpacks. They also have different jewelries, necklaces, keychains, earrings. I mentioned the rings already, or even just other fun stuff like puzzles, paintings, rugs, blankets, even bedding. They also have stickers if you want to go that route, or wall art, posters. You can also get things for someone's birthday, birthday themed Zelda, figures, lamps, Lego. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So if you want to partake in that as well as support the podcast, you can go to zelda-merchandise.com/reality2. So that again is zelda-merchandise.com/reality2 to partake in that. There is also a coupon code that will also be reality2 that you can also use at checkout as well to support not only Zelda merchandise, but as well as the podcast. And I'm back. Okay. So I am whispering because I have to. It's just, it is what it is. Anyways, let's continue this one. So we move on to Chris and Leah. For her, she says it came across to her that he was into her, which as a viewer, I don't understand how she thought that, but she explains more. She said that he met her sister-in-law because when she said that, I realized, oh yeah, I don't think we saw him meet anyone of her family. So he met her sister-in-law the day before they met mom, and he said that he was into me. That doesn't necessarily mean he is, though, because he's saving face in front of your sister-in-law to make it look like he's not a bad guy. That's not enough for me. But she says, he said that, and then with his mom, he's saying, or she's saying, you look so happy, and then in 2 minutes, he's stressed. And personally, again, I don't think it's crazy that, clearly he's good at faking, but I don't think it's crazy that he's going to say something to your sister-in-law and then, be able to unleash to his mother later. That's his mom. That's his safe space. He clearly feels he can unleash to her. Don't think that's crazy. but don't worry, I am gonna get on her side here. She says he also kept talking about, him being tired. He was tired with filming. That was where he kept saying he's so tired. Oh, and this part made me pretty upset because clearly he wasn't that into her. You could have just told her that, especially when she tells him that her best friend's mother died 2 days into being in Vancouver. That is when you're literally like, you know what? I don't even think this is going to work anyways. Or maybe we can try to see if there's something here after the fact. Go deal with that. Instead, he made it seem like he was into her and she stayed because of it. But she says as much as like, if you weren't in this, I could have just left. She needed me. You didn't. Well, like I asked him once, are you into me? And he said yes. Again, he could have definitely been into her initially. I don't doubt that. But I do think with the constant hovering of her, turn him off was overwhelming for him. I don't think that's a bad thing. So she's like, I'm not going to ask him again, which no, I don't think you should ask him again because then I come across as needy again. But I don't, I think you can word it in such a way where you're checking in, especially with this process being so expedited. Check in. Nick asks Chris, so, like, why not just tell her what your life is like? He kind of talks in circles here, and that's when I'm like, oh, something's not right with this guy. But Vanel says, let's be clear, you didn't like Leah. Like, let's just be very clear, you didn't. You clearly were not into her. He admits that we had a good time in Whistler, which I get. But 4 days into Vancouver, he was over the whole process. Guess what? Her best friend's mother died 2 days prior, who she says a little later on was like a mother to me. You could have told her, hey, girl, I don't know if I'm into this. 2 days in, she could have left and been home in no time. Because you're already on the West Coast anyway. She would have been home in no time. So it's, you wasted her time. I would be pissed. She clearly wouldn't have been able to attend a funeral. She clearly wouldn't have been able to be there for her friend. She missed that. She missed that opportunity to say goodbye to her best friend's mother at a funeral because you lied to her. I would have been pissed. He talks about this shopping date, which I was very, very confused by. But Jorge asks, did you have feelings for her? It's like, yeah, I did. Like, what are you talking about? You didn't. Because the minute someone says, yeah, I did, what do you mean? You're lying. Libby is like, you did her dirty. And appears Libby and him are friends. But he's like, you did her dirty. Leah's like, that whole shopping date situation, he told me he bought another girl $400 Prada bag that he didn't even like. So she's thinking, oh, you can buy me something way cheaper than that for someone you're claiming you do like. And so I think that's the whole thing. He took it as like the shopping date was um a red flag because she kept asking for things. And I'm like, what? I was, like I said, I was very confused. What did this have to do with the price of tea in China? But anyways, um, Logan is like, let me have his back right now because no one is. Which I'm like, there's no reason to have his back, to be totally honest. And Jorge's like, yeah, but we um, all we want is for him to speak his truth. He ain't doing that. She explains, my mom's friend died. She was like a mom to me. I would give you your space and I would cry alone in the room so that makes me think that we're seeing these moments where she is hovering, she is like all on him, but then she's also telling us, which I'm sure is true, is off camera. She's giving him his space because he needs it and she knows he needs that. But that goes against her. So she's putting herself last, as most women do, for his needs. Let me tell you, I was very guilty of that with my ex-husband. Very guilty. Especially after he was deported, it was all about him and his needs. Didn't give a fuck about mine. And I recognized that and I had to make that change. Wasn't the reason for my divorce, mind you, but it definitely was hard to change that habit because it was always about him. With my current boyfriend, I mean, it's not as bad as that. Definitely, there are moments where I push my needs back because he needs to come first, which isn't a bad thing to do. But, you know, women for sure tend to push our feelings aside to put the man first. So I'm not even surprised that was potentially something that was happening. Um, she's like, I came out to the living room and asked, can I sit with you? And I sat on the other side. I didn't cry in front of you. She just wanted that. She wanted that person with her. And I don't, again, think that's crazy. That doesn't make her, her being quote unquote clingy was her being like, oh, let's go do this. Let's go do that. Don't go to sleep. I hate you. Like that was where I had issue. But if you're just sitting there, just taking in a person being there, I don't think that's a bad thing. But, um, so I was worrying about your feelings, but you never worried about mine, which is how it goes, unfortunately. Leah admits at the commitment ceremony, she was going to say no. Girl should have said no. But she changed her mind. She shouldn't have. I don't know why. But again, she says she did because she thought he was into her. She had that preconceived notion. Turns out that wasn't true. So Nick brings up the last time he was on the podcast, he mentioned he had a desire to be on reality TV before. Is that so? That makes me think you're full of shit. He mentioned if I said that right, mainly he wanted to be on Survivor. What a 180 this was. He dropped out of school at 17 so he could be on Survivor. Then he's talking in circles again, and I'm just like, oh, I can't. Teresa then asks, I heard at our first mixer that Chris made a pact with another lady to partner up. So, like the original mixer at Whistler. Some people acknowledge, yes, they heard that. They heard him say that, which would be interesting because we don't know who that person is, number one. Number two, Chris was never on our radar until he was making out with Vanessa. That was the only time we saw him at all. And that was what we were into episode 3, I think. So it's interesting that maybe whoever he ended up with before or was planning to end up with before, there's just nothing there. He was on anyone's radar. Who knows? Some people, yeah, no, I heard that. He says, well, that lady approached me, but he won't say who it was. And then we get this little tidbit, and I got pissed off. Chris is moving on to next season of Perfect Match. I hate it here. Let's move on. I think it's our final people, Vanessa and Logan, who are still together, y'all. I'm shooketh. I'm very shooketh. No one ain't it yet. They kind of make a point here where, like, we can't really plan because we had to be secret for the last year. So, there was a lot of planning going on. They're going to be living with each other first before they start talking about that. They have a lot of hard times with their personal lives and how it's always going to affect their relationship. Um, her best friend died. Her aunt then died. Jesus fucking Christ. In a year, y'all. His dad lost his leg a month after filming. He apparently Logan tore his Achilles 3 months after filming. So, I mean, these two have been through it. He got surgery a month after he tore his Achilles, and then he tore it last month. Holy shit. I mean, your Achilles is very sensitive, but but they do say like happy we stay together. I already said they did. Um, and what about kids? Like, it's kids on the table. He's, he says, well, I mean, we practice. Same, same. Whether it's happening or not, practice makes perfect. Um, they say they have Gypsy Rose, her Shih Tzu. She's one of us, y'all. She's a true crime lover. When you're naming your dog Gypsy fucking Rose. Okay, that's the first thing I thought. We talk how unsatisfactory sex was initially because it had been a minute for him, so he came quickly. Um, it had been a year for her, a while for him, no determinate answer for that. But don't you worry, y'all. Practice has me perfect, and everything's amazing now in that department. Good for you. Anyways, that is Age of Attraction. That is the reunion. What I thought about the show in its entirety, it was drama. So I'm here for that. Do I think this concept makes sense for a television show? Sure, I do. Do I think that age is nothing but a number? No, not at all. Never did. Um, Age is a number in the sense of life experiences, maturity level, what you're ready for, all of those things. So, where you've been in life, I do think age is an important number. When you have someone like Jorge who has, like I said already, lived life, um, lived in New York, okay, Brooklyn, New York, in the 70s and the 80s, okay? Man's lived a life. He's a lawyer, he has children. Man has lived a life. Then you have Anel who hasn't lived that life. That just goes to show, like, you don't have the same life experiences. You don't have the same, I'm not gonna say you don't have the same maturity level. She doesn't come across as fairly mature. Um, and again, like, maybe you guys are in the same spot, but really you're not, because you're here arguing about the differences between celibacy and abstinence. So it's ridiculous. But either way, will I watch the show again? Yes, I will. Is there going to be another season? Yes, there is. What did I think about the reunion? Too much talking. It was almost 3 hours long. Too much talking. That was the cliff notes, y'all. And I feel like I did this for a long time. Anyways, that is it for this episode. We're gonna be jumping into Temptation Island. Um, I'm gonna be trying to give you as much as I possibly can in one shot. Because we are behind with the weeks here. I am gonna work on potentially doing 2 episodes of Staircase on the Patreon. It may not happen all on the same day, but I'm gonna try. And the same thing for Jersey Shore. It'll be 2 episodes. I believe I'm gonna try to do that. Again, I will try to make that happen on Thursday for both episodes for that one on the Patreon. So we can get that done. But otherwise, we'll do our best. But that's it for me, y'all. That is it for this episode. If you liked what you heard, bear with me because I have not done an outro for the podcast in quite some time. So bear with me here. So if you liked what you heard, you can go to any of your favorite podcast apps. You can like, follow, make sure you don't miss a single episode. And you can also rate the podcast at either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It'd be greatly appreciated. As a reminder, any 5-star ratings that are given to the podcast or any comments that are given to the podcast will be read on the podcast, which I have done in the past. If you want to connect with the podcast through social media, you can find me at Facebook and Instagram at Reality Tea times 2. You can also find me at Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Reality times 2 pod. I believe you can email me at realityteatimes2 at hotmail.com, and you can have any inquiries, anything like that, any ideas, any shows or episodes you want me to cover, you can definitely do that over there. And I am going back to our old website, and that is at solo.to/reality tea times 2. There you can get any of the links to anything that I didn't mention here, any of the socials, website, email, all of that. It's all there for you. And we also have a new thing there where you can help support the podcast as well. It's called a tip jar. And you could tip whatever your heart's desire if you want to support the podcast, but don't want to necessarily support the podcast in going to Patreon, for example, or any of the links in any of the advertisements. You can do it there. But since we're on the topic of Patreon, you can head on over to patreon.com/reality tea times 2, where there you can get access to even more than what I do here. There are 3 different tiers where you can get these shows ad free, as well as our next tier up where you would get another reality show that's being covered. So, we have Jersey Shore that's been getting covered. That's still being covered currently at the time of recording of this outro, but the future is bright with what's to come in the future, which I will be discussing, or I have discussed. I don't even know. And then also our next tier is a true crime tier as well. So you can definitely head over for that. But that is basically it. I will also just quickly mention here too, if you're interested in a different take of a podcast that I'm a part of, we do things a little differently. You can head on over to Next Take Podcast, where I usually drop bonus episodes here on this feed, but there you get a lot more. And that podcast is making changes. We're growing, doing new things, but you can definitely head on over there if you want to just hear a little bit different than what I do over here. So you can find that podcast over at our website, solo.to/next take podcast. And there we'll have all the links to your desire that will link you to any of your favorite podcast apps or YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. Social medias, it's all over there. But of course, you can still find that podcast at any of your favorite podcast apps. But that is it for this episode. We'll see you next time with another episode. Bye, everybody.